Hey, so I'm Tammi Labrecque. I write fiction and nonfiction, but most of your audience will know me for having written Newsletter Ninja. I did not want to do ACX. I didn't want to do like a royalty share. Like there was just, I figured I just need to produce this audiobook. And I was encouraged to read it myself, but A, I don't really have the setup, and B, I don't listen to audiobooks. So I actually felt like I wouldn't be a good choice for that because there's pacing and there's just audiobooks are very different. So I decided to go with Findaway. So the first thing I did obviously was create an account, which you can actually do just by clicking through like on Draft to Digital. Newsletter Ninja is distributed in part through Draft to Digital. So that was easy. It just actually ported, I think, some of the information over my poor memory. So I did that. And then I had talked to Kelly and Will. I've met them at conferences before. So I knew part of what they did and how it worked. And then also I'm friends with Jamie Davis, who uses Findaway pretty exclusively, and he had great things to say about them. So he told me they will email you and ask you this, and then you'll have to wait this long for this other thing. So I felt pretty solid going in that I knew what to expect. But it was actually, it was easier even than I had expected. Obviously, like I said, setup was easy, but then putting in metadata, choosing which distribution channels you want to be in, those were all cool. The coolest part, of course, was picking a narrator. And that part was super, super fun. They give you sort of a whole list of people that they have curated that they think would be good to produce your book. So when you put in the metadata for your book, one of the things that you tell them is sort of what kind of narrator you want. So if you're writing a specific kind of fiction, you might say, I want a narrator who, has a very upbeat tone, or you might say that you want somebody who can do certain accents. You can ask them to do all kinds of things. And then they choose the narrators that they have signed up with Findaway. They choose like 5, I think, narrators that they think would be good. And you get to go through and listen to those. You can actually reject all of those and ask for some more. But I got one right out of the gate. One of the first 5 was amazing. It didn't take very long for me, only because 4 of the 5 were okay. But the 5th person that I chose, her name is Caroline Cole. She was just amazing, right? Like right out of the gate, the reading, it clicked with me. I thought that she was doing a great job. Her voice is awesome. Obviously, I felt like she sort of talked like me. It was a little bit like listening to myself, although obviously she doesn't sound like me. It's a little bit like listening to myself talking about newsletters. And I teach a class on it, so I listen to myself talk about it a lot. So that it was really easy for me. I do know I've talked to some people who did have to go through a couple of rounds, and there's time in between. So you say, no, I hate all those narrators, give me more. And it takes them a little time to curate. I probably waited less than a week, certainly, for that first batch to come through. And I imagine it would have been about the same if I'd asked them to do some other ones. It was fantastic. It's really seamless. It's super user-friendly. What happens is you get the audio files, of course, are all broken down. An audiobook isn't just like one long talking file. They break them down into sections. And in my case, it was just per chapter. So there was one file for each chapter. So I would go through and listen. And I was also reading, obviously, along at the same time for any mistakes, of which there were actually very few. There were a couple of places where I just felt like the inflection wasn't right. That actually isn't kind of how I wrote that sentence. So I would ask her if she would, read that a little bit differently. There were some name pronunciations that she had trouble with, so I would tell her how to pronounce those things, and just, give her a little bit of correction. It was really easy. Actually, the only problem with it was that it was crazy time consuming, because it's like 3 or 4 hours of audiobook, and I totally do not have 3 or 4 hours to spare. Although the fact that it was broken down into chapters made it really helpful. So you listen to a chapter, and then you make notes there's a web form where you make notes about what you want her to change or what needs to be altered. You put in the timestamp so that she can find it. And then they just do, I think she called it a pickup, where really she'll just kind of re-record that little portion and splice it all together. So she doesn't have to read the whole chapter. That whole process, because I'm slow and because I went on vacation in the middle, took like, I don't know, 2 weeks or something. And they did email me and say, so, hey, you going to do this? And I was like, yeah, sorry. I'm right in the middle of something. And they were fine with that. It was totally fine. And then once I was done, I just said, yeah, everything's fine. She gave me the corrections and they all sounded good. And I said, that's fine. It's all good. And they said, awesome. You click to just say, I'm done. There's a button that's like, yes, let's do this. And then it propagates pretty slowly. So that I was super impatient at that point. Like, I finished my book. Where is it? And it probably took close to 7 days for it to start showing up. And then I don't think it hit Amazon for close to 2 weeks. But that's really not a Findaway problem. That's just a distribution problem. I think it's probably the same no matter what you do. So it was really seamless. It was easy. And then you just pick your channels. I want to sell it everywhere. Why would you go to Findaway if you didn't want to? And there's a special program that I can't remember what it's called. You can opt into some kind of special Findaway like visibility or deliverability thing, and they distribute maybe a couple more places, which is also cool. They are fantastic, actually. The communication is great. They're always, obviously unfailingly friendly. They're super helpful. I did have to ask, it was all a long time ago, but I can't actually remember, but I had just a couple of hitches where I was like, I don't quite know how to do this. And they would just, get back to you. Oh, I remember when I was actually choosing distribution, I had a little bit of a problem. And then when I published to Google Play, they discounted, of course. When I published directly to Google Play with an ebook, obviously I set the price a little bit higher to account for that discount, but that wasn't really possible through Findaway because it's just kind of one price. And so Google was lowering and Amazon was price matching. So when I emailed them about that, they were very helpful with it. The solution was to take it down from Google Play, but since they're not doing that anymore, I'll put that back up. But they were always quick with the response. I didn't wait more than a day to get an answer from them. They were always really helpful, and they always kind of followed up. Like, I'd say, okay, thank you, that works. And they'd be like, oh, so you're all set then. Do you need anything else? They're just really, really good. None of the people that I've met, like at conferences, were obviously the people who were emailing, but it's clear that the culture kind of trickles down because everybody was just very upbeat and helpful and really cool. Well, that's a good question. Most of the authors that I know that are kind of all in with audio say that it is a giant portion of their sales. My book is still really new, and I haven't started pushing the promotion on it because I'm in discussion with a couple of other indie nonfiction authors about maybe doing a big push for our new audiobooks all at once. So we're just kind of we're in a holding pattern while we figure that out. So I haven't really pushed it. But the fiction people that I know for sure, I'm trying to think, I'll name drop a little. Chris Fox makes a lot of money, obviously, from audiobooks. That's in nonfiction, so that's kind of a no-brainer. People listen to nonfiction a lot in audiobook. But also, the fiction market's growing. It's getting a lot bigger. My friend Wayne Stinnett sells a lot of audiobooks over in Sea Adventures is what he writes. And I know that Jamie Davis, his audiobooks, he said he makes most of the sales, most of the money that he earns from that comes via library sales. So libraries are lending out audiobooks to people. And I think there is, of course, a whole access piece as well. So even if you didn't make $1 bazillion off of it, the fact of the matter is that you will pick up new readers because audiobook people are not generally actual reader, word reader people, and vice versa. So it's a way to kind of tap a whole other market. There's just no downside to being as available as you possibly can. That is a good question. What would I do differently? Kevin, honestly, I don't think I'd do anything differently. I wouldn't go on vacation in the middle. And I would probably hustle a little bit with the listening. But I actually do plan to do it again. I'm writing a follow-up to Newsletter Ninja, and I will definitely be producing that with Findaway. I'm going to use the same narrator, obviously, because that just makes sense. And I mean, I can't wait. I know that it's going to be a really seamless process. I know that it's going to it just went off without a hitch. It was so easy. And I had this expectation from talking to other people, not necessarily Findaway people, but just friends who are in audio, that like, it was this really tedious process. And the only tedious part was listening to my own book get read to me a bunch of times, which hopefully the end user does not feel. So I honestly don't think I'd change much. Everything went smashingly. For people who are not sure if they want to get into audiobooks at all, I would refer to my other answer, which is there is no reason not to be as widely available as you possibly can. There are barriers to entry that include like price. Obviously, having to pay a narrator out of pocket is an expense. It's certainly more expensive than just getting a cover or something. But it is worth it. Everyone I know who does audio, their audiobooks do earn back out, so that, you know, at least you're not in the red over those. And like I said, you're expanding your audience to people. So I honestly, I can't think of any reason why somebody shouldn't make the leap to audiobooks. And then specifically, with taking the choice of going with Findaway as opposed to, say, doing ACX, which is a really common method for indies to do, there is, of course, the whole exclusivity piece. There's having no control over pricing. It's actually super annoying to me that I can't make Amazon change my price. But I can change it anywhere else that I want to, because that's up to me. I get to do it. You can run discounts on audiobook, which you cannot do. And there's no, contracted length. So ACX is what, like 7 years, I think it is, that you can't do anything with that audiobook except let them sell it through Audible and then iTunes. And I'm just not down with that. However, for people who are struggling financially with it, of course, you could do the royalty share thing with ACX, and that, I guess, is helpful. But imagine that your audiobook takes off, right? And you sell a bazillion copies. You're Andy Weir with The Martian. Now you got to share that. You got to 50-50 that with a narrator in perpetuity. So for me, what I would do is save up your pennies until you can afford to pay a narrator, and just do it that way and have the control. We all became indies because we wanted to have more control, right? So the less you do to sign away your rights to things, your ability to make changes to things, the better off you are, as far as I'm concerned.